video here, we are going to tell you the secret of long life from the African perspective. And this is a tribute to my Baba Osha, who had recently transitioned to the Arun, Are Oladeji Olaiwola, and he recently died at the age of 135 years old. Run that back, 135 years old. So from the interactions that I had with Baba, I would want to share this with you and give you the secret to long life from the African perspective. So please stay tuned. So it was a blessing to have my Adoshu done by Oladeji Olaiwola Baba, the RA. And so the RA is like a community leader. He is the one that oversees a particular cult. So the RA was over the Osha Funfun, the white orisa in Oyo, almost like the president of all of the priests in Oyo. And I always admire those priests. I admire those individuals that would devote their lives to divinity. And when I was coming up, my early 20s, my biggest role models, believe it or not, were the Himter Tepi, the high priest, specifically of Asar. That's the energy that I follow. Of course, we know Asar, Osala, Asara. They're the same entity in both traditions, Dangbi and, Vodun, Aguisi and Igbo, Aswusi and Akan. But those priests were my role models. It's those people who can just devote themselves to, things that you don't see and kind of step back from the earthly things. So I always looked up, to those people, and it was a blessing to have that type of caliber of individuals and men who were present during my Idoshu. And so, of course, Oishe Agbaye, Wande and Bimbola blessed his presence at my Idoshu, and I like to think Kola and Bimbola, he was the one who connected me with the RA, infinite gratitude. So of course, Achugana, Kola and Bimbola was there, the Elegun, who recently passed of Shango, actually was there, and so it was bananas on all the folks, that high energy that were there. And if you look at it from the spiritual side, it's like, Shango was giving his blessing. It was Orumila that was there giving his blessings. Obalu Farm was giving his blessings. The chief priestess of Oya was there as well. And so all of these entities that were there, just the view, they didn't conduct the ceremony, but still just that presence there, because it's a very communal thing in Africa. So it was such a beautiful thing there. So as we started with those 7 days, before we started those 7 days, actually, Ajugana, Baba Kola and Bimbola introduced me to the RA before. He was saying, hey, I want you to come meet Baba now. And so I met Baba, and, I, prostrated and gave my respect to Baba. And when he met me, he didn't say anything, no words interchanged. Like immediately when he saw me, it was like he got as if he was possessed by Obatala, and he started chanting a story. Like no words, no nothing. I just said, thank you, Baba, and I am appreciative of you helping me out and helping me connect to Obatala. So immediately he started chanting, and so in this story he was chanting about Orumila conspirators who was sending a conspiracy against them, and they wanted to trap and to kill Orumila. And so I didn't get much of the story at that point. I just got snippets. But I know in the end of the story, the people who were conspiring to harm Orumila, they ended up fighting with themselves, and Orumila escaped the trap that was set for him. So what Baba said was that, you're surrounded by enemies, which I get a lot of times. You're surrounded by enemies, that people who just do not like you and that are conspiring to take what you have. But you cannot get into a fight. You cannot argue. You cannot, debate. It is basically, and this was reiterated throughout the 7 days. It's like it is taboo for you to argue with anybody, even if you are in the right. Can't say nothing about it, right? You can't argue. And so, I pondered upon that. So I'm like, okay, this definitely has some merit because different priestess and priests were saying the same thing. And, I'm not a hothead. I don't fly off the handle. But to me, I'm like, if something's right, if it's moral or if it's just, I'm going all the way live for it. You know what I'm saying? But they were saying that you cannot argue. So that was day 1, beautiful experience. And so when we went to day 7, after the spirit of Obatala, descended on me and that commitment was affirmed, went into possession and they finished up the rest of the divination on that 7th day. And Baba Oladeji Olaiwola, he actually gave the last verse to chant. And we have the audio here, and so I'm going to cut the audio in so you can hear Baba chant this word, and so that is Ashe could live on a little further in the digital space. So that essay, and remember, brothers and sisters, essay is like a poem, okay? So that essay, and remember, brothers and sisters, essay is like a poem. From the Odu. An Odu, you can probably say, is like a chapter of an encyclopedia, but an Odu is an orisa. An Odu is an Orumale that had actually existed. So it's an elder that had seen things before, and certain events are categorized based on that elder that's seeing it. And so this came from the Odu Obara, and Baba recounted a story. And so this story was about a band of hunters. And so here, these hunters were told to be very careful to give sacrifices to Shango, sacrifices to Osain, so that what they are seeking to achieve will not be destroyed, and so that also one can be protected from a trap that someone's trying to put you in. So in this story, it was a couple of hunters that were entering the forest, and we'll have all of the full essay and the chant on thewhitejuju.com. So all of the chants we have, all of the essays we have the chants for, so that you can read. So in this story, it was a band of hunters, and they were going into the forest, and they were looking for some food to eat, and they were trapped in the forest. They were looking in the forest for 6 days, and they couldn't find anything to eat or anything to cook. And so right before they were going to head back, and so mind you, not only food to cook while they were in the forest, but they were looking for animals to hunt because they're hunters, and this is what they do. And there was no success. They weren't able to grab anything there. So while they're in the forest, they met someone, an Aridelagoon diviner. And so they met the Aridelagoon diviner, and I'm getting this story as it was transcribed for me because most of the people there didn't speak English. That's cool, but it just took me a little extra effort to extract the story. So they were saying Obanla. So Obanla means the principal or the high-ranking king, and that's a praise name for Obatala. So they're saying that at this time, Obanla changed into a human form. So it's not clear if Obanla turned into the Aridelagoon diviner, or Obanla was just someone that was around the forest while the hunters were there. That part, brothers and sisters, the story isn't clear for me. So Obanla came across the hunters, and he asked, where are you coming from? What are y'all doing? So they answered that, we've been in the forest for days, and we haven't seen any animals. We're hungry. Not only do we need animals for money, to sell, but we need animals to eat. So Obatala said, the way that you'll be going, you're gonna find some animals, and then you'll see some animals to kill. And so when the hunters were coming back, traveling back through the forest, they indeed saw animals that they can hunt. They saw animals that they can kill. And so they took all the pieces of the animal and they gave them back to the head hunter. So when they gave it back to the head hunter, they asked them to contribute. The head asked the rest of the hunters to contribute some pieces to Obatala for he led them in the right direction. He was responsible for them to find some meat and to find some sustenance while they were trapped in the forest. Take a look at the metaphor or the symbolism behind what that may mean. So they packed their stuff up and they were looking for Obatala, but they thought, Obatala must have left. They really didn't put too much effort into searching for him. And so when they were coming back, they fell into a hole. Like it was this huge hole or a trap that was in the middle of the forest. And so they were stuck in this trap for 6 days. It's a play on words. Just as they were, trapped in the forest for 6 days, they're trapped in the hole for 6 days. Albara is 6 Kairis faced up on the Ate or the Asho Funfun. And when they were trapped there, Obatala once again turned into a human. And they asked the humans again, like, what's wrong or what's going on? Why y'all sitting there in this hole? And the hunters begged them. They begged the man, like, we fell into a trap. We need help. Can someone free us? Can someone free us? We've been down there for 6 days. We're getting hungry and we're just losing hope. Can someone come and get us out of this hole? So, Obatala said, well, if I let you out of this hole, what are you going to do for me? Like, what's in it for me to help all of y'all to get out of this hole? So they all replied, well, if you free us out of this hole, and if you really help us, that we are going to contribute each of these pieces of animals that we done slaughtered, that we'll give you some as a form of gratitude. We'll give you some of the animals that we have. We could eat them or we could sell them. We'll give you what we call. So Obatala ended up sending a message to Shango, and then Shango was able to cause the rain to fall. And so when the rain fell, that these hunters were able to, I guess maybe manipulate the mud or the clay or just move themselves out, and they were able to free themselves from out of this pit. And so, the hunters were saved, and they were ready to go. And so when they were leaving or walking throughout the forest after they exited that hole, Obatala said to them once again, what about that thing that you promised me? You promised me that you were going to give me some animals. And then the hunters replied, oh, no, you misunderstood. Like, we didn't say that we were giving you anything. We didn't say that we were going to give you something. We said that we were going to say something. Look at the symbolism. We didn't say that we were going to give you something. We said that we were going to say something. We said that we were going to praise you. We were going to sing songs for you. We were going to praise you. So Obatala said, okay, the music is enough. Let me hear what you're doing. Let me hear the song that you're going to sing. And so this is the translation in Yoruba. As they said, my Ori helped me. My children helped me. My colleagues helped me. Osha helped me. My children helped me. So Obatala said, okay, that's enough. That's enough. You have to sing for me 200 times in the morning, 200 times in the afternoon, 200 times at night, and you should never open your mouth to speak again. And from this point, Obatala turned those hunters into frogs. And so when you hear that croaking at night, that is the sound of the hunters that did not perform their sacrifice, and they are praising Obatala through their frog songs. So very powerful story. And then also there's a common bond between royalty and frogs, just as the frog sits on the boat of Asar, or how, folks have like the Princess and the Frog, and, a lot of Walt Disney things were appropriated, or a lot of art was stolen from the Yoruba, specifically of all African ethnic groups. But that's a very, very powerful story. And so when the RA told me this story, I just thought about what this means, and this ties back into what I started this episode off with, quoting that Aaliyah song. Dust yourself off and try again. Is that we can be like those hunters? Is that we can have that pursuit of divinity? We could have good intentions, but hard times or struggling can really start to test your faith. And if you made that commitment to a divinity, if you made that promise that you were going to serve Obatala, that you were going to serve Obatala, it doesn't matter what things go wrong in your life, that you can't change that. If you gave an entity your word, you have to be devoted to that spiritual principle. Whatever taboo they told you that you cannot violate, you have to uphold that. There are several stories with Obatala and Yamu that specifically mention spiritual devotion and how important it is to almost have blind submission to the deities. And this may be a little different for other devotees. Again, I have a small niche. It's Obatala, Osha, Funfun, that's it. But I know that sometimes there are some things that other folks could do that's, that won't cause them any harm. Just as arguing, for an example, is taboo for me. Other people can, go back and forth all day and act in that extroverted manner. I cannot. The Osha Funfun folks cannot. That doesn't mean to be a pacifist or pushover being weak, but you just can't engage in that energy. So regardless, if folks lose their dignity, you can't lose yours. If folks don't cherish, iwa kwele, iwa rere, good character, being omoluabi, that doesn't mean that you should throw yours away. Or even if you're surrounded in all this types of negativity, don't think that your light has no positive contribution into the world. We see a whole bunch of madness, a whole bunch of lust, a whole bunch of anger, a whole bunch of impatience, just a whole bunch of rage, dysfunction, to where it's like, what's the point? What's the point of really struggling, taking a good pay cut, spending so much time, doing this uphill battle to preserve the work of Osha, when it's definitely feels like it's not going to be respected or it's not going to be appreciated. That's not for us to judge, and that's not for me to judge. That wasn't for myself to judge. It was a task that, I was commanded to do. And this is why we're here, finishing up that task, doing what was told to us from Osha. So, I would say to all of us is that, if you had a dream, if you had a goal, if you had something that you wanted to do, and even though you have a significant setback or you have difficulties doing that thing, like Aaliyah said, dust yourself off, try again, keep moving forward, and don't lose hope. And if you made a commitment, if you got in front of a shrine, or if you prayed to a deity and said, whoever that deity is, if you do this for me, I swear I'll do this, you gotta uphold by that. If you made a promise to an entity, you have to uphold that. There's no stepping out of that. And if you do, just consider that there will be some serious reprimand or consequence. So, if one had done that, I will go to the deity personally and offer some of their foods, but then, as a show of respect. But also, the biggest elbow may not be an animal. It's not a herb. It's not, ewe. It's not food. The biggest elbow is psychological and behavioral change. So yes, you can give some food, but you have to follow up with a behavioral change to be sure that you're not going to do this again. So all of this ties in together to what I said I promised to give you all is the secret to long life. Again, Ola Deji, Ola Iwola, Baba, the RA made it to 135 years old. And so I know that when people initiate to Obatala, since Obatala is an old man, not the oldest, but he is the old man, Baba Arubo, I think that gets mistranslated sometimes as being Obatala being the oldest or whatnot, or even being the first from Eledamare, or the first creator on behalf that was sanctioned by Eledamare. it's true in a sense that he's one of the first, but his rank is senior. That's why he's put first. He was sanctioned by the creator, by Aledamare no Shumare, for him to be the ambassador of that creative energy. Because, technically Olokun is older than Obatala, Olorun is older than Obatala. Of course, Aledamare or Shumare, they're older, than Obatala. So it's not the fact that he's the oldest, but he's the most senior, but he is one of the older Erumale. So they say by just taking on this entity, that you take on the spirit of the old man, is that is a good step in the right direction. But also, I want to count a story from Ogonda. Ibi nuoshe, unkanfuni, Sùúrù, babeiwa, agbatoni Sùúrù, ajeabo, ajeato, da orumela. And so in this story, this was how Orunmila was able to have success in dealing with a very difficult wife who was intentionally difficult and committed such horrible things that a stranger shouldn't even do. And so the diviners told him that he needed to have patience. And of course, we'll go through this story in depth a little later. But patience was the way that he was able to avoid or put a stop to some of these issues. And so, in that story, as it says, patience is the elder of all moral character. And so, when someone says, excuse me in Yoruba, and again, they have expressions, is more colorful or more artistic than English. So you would say, my being new, right? So that when you would, want to say excuse me, you would say my being new. And that's like, don't give birth to your insides, like just chill, like don't pop your top, you know what I'm saying? And so this essay in that poem is basically telling you that, impatience really doesn't help anybody, you know what I'm saying? And that you need to have patience, and patience is the elder of all character. And so it's a belief that when you're impatient, it's like you're starting fires all in your gut, right? And that fire is just being self-destructive, and it's destroying you on the inside. And so if patience is the elder of all ethical character, you have to think that impatience has to be the soul killer of people. And I see that so often, and it's one of my largest pet peeves. Like, I am impatient with impatient people. Like, I cannot stand that. Being rude, being disrespectful, and just really inconsiderate. And it's not just me. I now see that there is a cultural objection towards that type of behavior. So when we're thinking about a long life, we have got to chill out. You have got to be patient. And it's a shame where I see people who are well into their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they're so rude and so impatient. That's not the way that Obatala is telling us to live. That's not Black. That's not African. You don't act like that, right? You have got to be patient. And if you want to have this long life, you have got to chill out. And it's a shame when we see people who have, cardiovascular issues, or, even some people are saying fibroids, or just a lot of like internal issues due to this heat, anger, fire, and aggression that's really, pushed in the wrong direction. So if you take a look at certain animals, like a turtle, a turtle lives, they live a long time, but look at as a turtle moves. Like, they have a nice, even pace. Like, they're moving, they're not rushed. They just have a nice, even pace, kind of slow. They live a long life. Take a look at elephants, take a look at, snails or whatnot. Is that I see when we see those animals that Obatala possesses, like, there has to be some type of similarity about his energy and why he's possessing these certain type of animals and why he lives a long time. So I would say one, for this secret of long life that I have learned through Baba Oladeji and through the Eridelegun, is that we have got to chill out, we have got to calm down, and you have to purify yourself through possession. And so the dream state is very similar to the ritual state. So you would have to spend time invoking your Orianu, invoking your guardian deity, and just sit in that ritual space and look at the renewal process that the body goes through when entering those different types of ritual states in the mind. Deep breathing, meditation, spirit possession or spirit communication, and going for walks, getting into nature, and just taking it slow. And you would start to see that it can shave time off of, or it could, excuse me, it could add time onto your life, and then patience will shave off time. And sometimes we may not be able to avoid certain people or certain scenarios, and so even if you're in a job to where, if it's, we have issues everywhere that we go, and I know some things that you can't avoid, but if it's something employment wise, to where you're under the gun, under a real like impatient supervisor or whatnot, or if you're in a marriage, or if you have to deal with people on a regular, it's real easy to absorb that type of energy because you're constantly exposed to it. It's just like if you have you have a fresh fruit and you got a fruit that's rotting. If you put them kind of close to it, the mold spores will come onto the other one. So this is why I'm saying you got to ritually purify yourself so you can get all of that projection off of you, and just don't respond. I'm not saying being weak or be a pushover. It's just knowing when to respond and when not to respond. And then you can say something one time and just bite your lip, and that's it. And then you take it to your deity. You take it to Obatala. You take it to Eshu. If you all aren't Osha Funfun worshippers, I would say go to your primary deity. But I would more so go to Eshu, because he's known for advocating for the underdog. To where if people are who like to play these power games and these game of struggles, you give it to Eshu and he will handle it. So I'm not saying turn the other cheek or that Obatala is a pacifist, because he's not. But there's ways that you engage in war, and it's not life or death. You don't need to get into hand-to-hand combat. But if you do, you protect yourself. But these situations do not require combat. They just require a little bit of grace and strategy. So I hope you find that helpful today, is that through the elder who recently transitioned and may be accepted on the other side by Oshala, which I'm sure he will be, is that long life is just chilling out, taking it easy, going slow, making that commitment to Obatala, making that commitment to your spiritual devotion. And no matter what you do, is that you make sure you stay on your throne, that you don't respond in any ways that you know that you should not respond. Let it go, give it to the ritual, and they'll handle it. So y'all stay devoted. We're here, we're back with regular scheduled videos. And if you made it this far, please hit that subscribe button. I know it sounds corny and cheesy, but it really helps us to, devote ourselves full time to kicking out this content. And share it with your friends and family. Check us out at thewhitejuju.com, and we will see you very soon. Ariel Odabo.